What does Little Nightmares hide off camera in the depths during the Secrets of the Maw DLC? In Little Nightmares, we must endure and survive wandering through an eerie vessel, as everything on this ship basically wants us dead. But how does the game work behind the scenes? In this video, we'll be heading out of bounds, brightening up the map, and showing you how this terrifyingly creepy adventure works from a game developer's perspective. Like, did you know this old lady was a rock star off camera? Along the way, we'll be putting the Runaway Kid into some odd predicaments, so I hope you enjoy this breakdown of the depths in the Little Nightmares DLC. Little Nightmares has become a cult classic by this point. The environment is just so eerie, and we feel so helpless as a player clawing our way to freedom. But now we can experience this adventure in a different way. Little Nightmares has just released for iOS and Android, so you can take this creepy tale with you in your pocket wherever you go. Little Nightmares Mobile recently reached out to partner with me for this video, which was honestly really cool. The mobile version has fully customizable controls, so you can swap to whatever touch setup works best for you. And if you have a mobile controller, you can use that as well. Relive the dark tale of the game that started it all, or dive into it for the first time by clicking the links below to pick it up. And a big thanks to Little Nightmares Mobile for sponsoring this video and supporting me as I continue to show you guys things behind the scenes. Before the DLC starts, let's take a peek at the Depths chapter selection area. Within, we can see the Runaway Kid on a cupboard as he's stranded in this flooded room. Taking a closer look doesn't reveal much else outside of what we'd normally see. However, if we take a look within the kid's model, we can find a cube up in his neck. This is similar to a cube we found earlier inside the Janitor, and the texture map material for this character is applied to this cube. So it's kind of neat seeing this in this form still in the game, when normally it's spread over the actual model. With that though, let's talk about the depths. As always, I'd like to do a very quick recap that will help everyone remember the DLC and where it takes place in the story. So being a puzzle adventure game, initially we play as a little girl named Six in the main story. We must escape the Maw, which is this gigantic water vessel, full of monstrous-like characters. But as the story unfolds with Six, another is taking place deep in the lower levels of the Maw. Hence, the name of the first section in the Secrets of the Maw DLC, the Depths. Here we play as the Runaway Kid, who also has a strong desire to escape this, well, little nightmare. Playing as the kid, we're unable to defend ourselves, being potentially vulnerable to some intense deaths. But with some quick and keen decision making, we shall hopefully prevail. At the start, we appear in this body of water in which we can swim around in. It doesn't last long though, as this hand rises from the murky water, grabbing the kid and viciously pulling him under. But it was just a dream, as we wake up in a familiar room. Let's go back to that dream though. We're going to brighten things up a bit and take a closer look at this area. If we take a step back, we can see the kid's dream actually takes place above the room he wakes up in. However, let's get a closer look at the owner of this creepy hand. This hand belongs to the Granny. Before starting her attack sequence, she could be found underneath this body of water. Initially, after pausing the game, I found her hand protruding through the floor of the room. This Granny looks like Gollum's long-lost soggy grandma. There's no ring to rule them all down here though. Just Granny doing some stretches before she drowns a kid. Eventually she teleports below our character and then advances on our poor defenseless Runaway Kid. As he's dragged down, they both disappear, with the area unloading and the kid teleporting down to the room where we wake up. While in this camera mode, I move the camera back to get a wide shot to the entirety of this DLC's first section. And as you can see, we have quite a ways to go throughout this ship. Back in the room we woke up in, you can see children sleeping in other beds that we took a closer look at in a previous endeavor. It appears we're going to be adventuring through some areas that Six also does in the main game. Heading out of here, we initiate a chase scene down below us involving another kid and our old friend, the Janitor. This long-armed creep will chase down the child and will corner and grab them. Then he'll walk back from where he came, eventually disappearing off screen. Before the scene begins, we can find the poor child standing by, waiting for his cue to be chased. The thing is, we can also find the same kid flailing in midair within the door the Janitor comes from. However, the Janitor instantly appears right in front of the door as the chase sequence begins. As he chases, we can see his arms get caught up by this cage, causing them to bend in unnatural directions. They do correct themselves shortly after though. When the Janitor grabs the kid that ran, we can see that the model disappears and then reappears in the monster's hand. The model we saw shaking around earlier gets instantly moved to the Janitor's hand and replaces the other one. We can see he's no longer floating over here. Normally, trying to get down here while this chase takes place is futile, as we break every bone in the kid's body. But we can nightcrawler our way down here with teleporting. While doing teleportation and having the game frozen in time, it's a bit trippy looking though. So our character's body is what gets moved, as it's the actual player controller, but the hair doesn't move until the game updates on the next frame. This is because the hair is designed to follow our player model as it's parented to it. So you get this funny model smearing before the game updates. With teleporting down here, you can see I can't interact with the boy that's running. I was hesitant to engage the janitor at first, but I attempted to be a hero and rescue this kid. Instead, I ended up getting grabbed by him with the boy disappearing in the process. Not what I expected, but here we are. In my next attempt, I wait for them to exit through this doorway with a, well, unsurprising result. He winds up and grabs me on the spot, just like before. Because the camera is currently detached, it's preventing the game from reloading after our death, which allows us to remain in this instance to explore. Moving on though, the player can't follow the janitor, so we have to go down further, where we have to avoid an eye, a form of added security for the Maw. If caught in the light, the victim turns into a statue. As we're avoiding the light, we encounter another child who runs away as soon as we get close. She scurries away with a flashlight as she goes off screen. Teleporting down to her bypasses her action to run away, and she'll remain standing there. We can't interact with her in any way though. Following her with the camera shows that she runs through this entire hall and then through a wall. She enters an unloaded room where she'll continue to run and then she eventually disappears. Going this way reveals more familiar rooms that we've previously encountered as 6, but eventually we catch up to the girl. She makes her escape through this window as we're tasked with finding a way up. By the time we make our way up and out of the window, we can see the girl is well ahead of us as she runs away. However, as she's making her way out of the window, we can find another model of her below, and this one is frozen in place. Once girl number 1 is out of normal view, she disappears, as girl number 2 remains frozen until a character goes through the window. She crawls through this hole, disappearing shortly after. Following this is where we find ourselves taking a trip down this long pipe and into some lovely murky water. From another perspective, we can see that the kid actually doesn't fall and floats right below the opening of the hole up top, and then teleports down below, making it appear as if we fell through the pipe. It's not looking too good for this kid, as the situation worsens. So as we progress, we find a way up on this ledge and then encounter some lovely leeches. They move faster while in water, but as long as your dodging is on point and you're quick about it, you can escape by climbing out of this area. Following this leads us into our next encounter with a granny as we cross this body of water. She spawns in the back left corner once we get near the middle of the room. You can see her spawn in with this different viewpoint as we cross. She looks like she's just really happy to be here in her diver's pose. Slowing it down, we can observe her gracefully swimming towards our character. We can also see that her legs aren't connected to her torso. It actually looks like her whole pelvic area is missing. This doesn't slow her down though. She's hungry. Even without modifying the game, as she grabs me, she never ends up pulling me down. It ends with my character flailing at the surface of the water as it fades to black. This happens a lot, and I'm not sure why that is. However, from here, there's quite a bit of ground that we cover that doesn't have much going on outside of normal gameplay. We clear this pipe filled with leeches and solve a puzzle that involves lowering and raising the water level in order to progress. I did find a lever above this area where we changed the water level. Sadly though, I was unable to control my character properly while off camera, as I blindly walk above here in this default camera view. Regardless, I wouldn't have been able to reach it anyways. Sad face. The next area brings us back into the danger zone with Granny. Normally, you have to jump from one object to the next as you try to avoid this soggy lady's grasp. I ended up trying to confuse the granny by teleporting the kid down under the water, where he can in fact breathe, by the way. This makes sense, as we're never meant to be down here to begin with. Joke's on me though, because she starts to sink and clip through the floor and then teleports below me, as she, oh, never mind, she doesn't see me. Wait a minute, I think she's caught on, and I'm dead. But because the game's camera is still dislodged, the game keeps going, resulting with, well, the granny continuing her swimming as she flails the kid around like a puppet on strings. It was pretty hilarious to see this take place. As you can see, I just let the game keep running while she continuously tortures our poor runaway kid. After respawning, I teleport to the following area where we continue our journey evading this grandma. While pulling up this bag of bodies, we can see some resistance while we are pulling, as if Granny is trying to pull it back down. Pausing it while this struggle occurs, and taking a closer look reveals she's nowhere near this bag during this struggle. But after leaping to the next area, we now have to feed Granny. With this part, feeding her allows us the time we need to swim safely out of this area. When throwing meat into the water, we can see her sink and then teleport underneath her meal. She'll take one nice bite out of it and then sorta just zones out, eventually entering back into her hunting mode. The meat vanishes when she's done and then comes back out of this pipe, as you can see, essentially reusing this meat over and over. After clearing this, I found a shoe and threw it in the water to see if Granny would interact with it. However, the shoe does not interest her as she continues to swim about. Moving on, as we climb up here and jump up to this door, it leads us into another flooded room that needs to be drained. Pulling this lever will do just that, followed by the player needing to break this jar on the table. Breaking it reveals the key we need in order to progress. Oh yeah, there's a leech in there too. Taking a peek inside shows these two are not actually in the jar prior to breaking. It's only when the jar breaks open that the leech and key spawn in. But now we can unlock this door and carry on. So we make our way to another puzzle that involves trying to get across this water without getting electrocuted. Sadly, nothing outside of normal gameplay really occurs here. So we move on, but not without nearly getting electrocuted again. Talk about cutting it close. This leads us to a creepy shower that has this eerie looking hole in the middle of it. My first time playing through this, I kept my distance from this black hole, but if you do decide to jump into this hole, it leads to death. Getting a better look at this hole though shows that it's not really that deep. However, when the player jumps in the hole, they clip through the visible ground and fall out of the room. We can see a random leech on our way down, but as you can see, because I'm in this camera mode, we continuously fall forever, eventually becoming a speck in this great abyss. Upon leaving the showers, we get a brief look at Granny, as she sinks into the water upon our arrival. If we don't enter this next section, she will remain in that same position until we enter. I'm beginning to realize how scary it would be to encounter her outside the water. She's one tall lady. While a character is on objects in the water, Granny will hit the object in an attempt to knock us off our feet. Watching this from below shows just that, as she swims up and uses her flabby muscles to hit the suitcase. In result, I die. But the fact that we never see her eat the kid convinces me that she just needs a friend. I mean, look how well they get along. Moving forward, this flooded section works similarly to the previous ones, as we continue to evade Granny. After reaching a safe spot, we once again have to solve a puzzle that involves finding a lever and correctly positioning this suitcase. The lever winds back as the door begins to shut, so if you're not quick enough, the door could easily crush you. However, after completing our task and successfully getting out of here, we find ourselves nearing the end of this first section, which will also be our last encounter with the Granny. When we enter this room, we push this door down and we can see Granny in a chair. She immediately slithers into the water upon our arrival. Taking a look at her while she's sitting in this chair is pretty funny. You'd imagine she's resting and perhaps her eyes will be closed, but no, she's just sitting here all wired up, anxiously waiting for us to show up. As she was slowly but surely entering the water, I was surprised to see that there was another Granny down there. The second Granny spawns right underneath the other as she sinks into this frozen position, while the other Granny pursues us. This other one's hand is stretched out, along with her legs and feet appearing to be twisted around a bunch. Her other hand is also deformed. At a quick glance, I thought she had a pot belly too, but it's clearly just the angle of her model that makes it appear this way. A duplicate version of the door we pushed into the water sits at the base of this room as well. This door probably gets swapped out like the other models we've been seeing. Anyways, we're yet again tasked with trying to cross this water safely. When we get to this buoy, it slowly starts to sink as if Granny is pulling it down. In a similar fashion, like the bags we were trying to pull up a little bit ago, Granny is actually not interacting with this buoy. Moving on and successfully evading Granny leads us to this final showdown with her. Once we make it to this area and climb up to this spot, we then need to pull this lever, which turns on the power. This follows with us then swinging over to this balcony, where we then pull another lever, raising the water level. Doing this upsets Granny, and she reacts by tearing the balcony down. If we wait to pull this lever and look underwater, we can find Granny with her arms stretched out, patiently waiting for her cue to strike. As I was taking a look at this, to my surprise, another Granny emerges, as she clips through the black floor. But wait, there's more! Following this sequence of events, after this balcony breaks, we need to make our way over to this other balcony that has a TV on it. While doing all of this, we can see Granny viciously trying to stop us, as she makes multiple attempts to tear down this platform. If we go back underwater and continue exploring, it's revealed that there aren't just 2 Grannies in play, but there's actually 4 Grannies. Well, 5, including this one under the floor, but it's these 2 that grab my attention. Reason being is that we can see these Grannies rocking out like there's no tomorrow, as they're throwing up the rock and roll hand signs. I guess she knows she's about to go out with a bang. So we push the TV into the water. Watching the TV electrocute Granny is kinda brutal, so I slowed down the speed of the game to get a better look. Unfortunately, I killed the kid in the process though. But clearly it's too much for Granny, who eventually explodes off the balcony pole and slowly plummets to the floor. She partially clips to the ground, making for a creepy, watery grave. Rest in peace, Grandma. Oh yeah, we're dead too. After restarting, I decided to check before I complete this area what would happen if I teleported the kid to the TV platform and pushed the TV off the edge. This will be taking place before the power is turned on, not to mention the water being raised as well. The end result is that everything occurs nearly all at once as soon as that TV hits the water. Dead Granny proceeds to be electrocuted as this Granny on the far left begins pulling down the balcony. The water is rising as all this takes place too, which probably explains why I found Granny all contorted from when she was electrocuted. It's kinda neat to see all this transpire from a sequence break. So we restart one last time and successfully complete this section to move on. This very next room is where we begin our climb, as we take these stairs followed by this long ladder. This eventually leads us into this room where we're immediately greeted by the janitor as he reaches out with his long, dangly arms and grabs us. The screen then cuts to black. Checking this out from a different view reveals that it is in fact just his arms and hands we're being captured by. These arms will just wait for the player to enter the room and can't be dodged. But if we teleport up here, we can bypass the trigger for the janitor to grab us. This allows us to roam around this room without the fear of being grabbed. There's not much to explore in here though, as these hands are sleeping on the job. The only catch here is now we're locked in this room until we reload the last checkpoint. And with that, this concludes our Out of Bounds journey through the depths section in the Secrets of the Maw DLC. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and a big thanks to Little Nightmares Mobile for sponsoring this video once again. Click the link in the description below to pick it up for iOS and Android, for a fraction of the price it is on Steam. And I will see all of you in the next video. Cheers!